Hey everyone, and welcome to the Ask Nicole weekly live stream where I, Nicole, go live every week and talk about something related to tech and marketing as it relates to small business. I've had this broadcast in my list for a while, and what made me, I guess, call it this is that I was on a sales call a couple of months ago, and we were talking about sort of WordPress functionality, and I mentioned offhand that, this plugin is great. I would totally marry it if it was a person, just to be funny. And they ended up going with a different firm after this interview. So, this is supposed to be a tongue-in-cheek way of me saying that I really like these particular WordPress plugins. I put them on just about every website that we do because they work so well for most people. Now, I want to give a little brief history of sort of WordPress and why we're talking about this today, because I'm not one of those people who thinks WordPress is perfect, okay? Don't think anything is perfect, and I certainly don't think WordPress is perfect. But just a little mini background in case you're not going to. I did a video last year talking about the differences between Wordpress.com and Wordpress.org. I really wish, honestly, they would have just called Wordpress.com WordPress Lite. So Wordpress.com, in case you're wondering, it is a different thing than WordPress.org, even though they have the same name and they're done by the same company. WordPress.com is a paid service. You go on. Actually, you can make a free account there too, but once you start taking up room, they're like, oh, hey, we give you this much free space, but like if you bought an account, you could just keep your website here. And so they are the kind of commercial arm of WordPress. So when you're on WordPress.com, you got to use the plugins they've approved in their ecosystem and all of that. Now, WordPress.org, you go to that website and you download WordPress, right? And you can put that download of the entire content management system wherever you want. It also means that you can install whatever plugins that you want as part of this. So most companies go with WordPress.org because it does give you more functionality, and also it happens to be less expensive. For example, if you buy a domain on WordPress.com, I think they charge like $30 or something like that. Whereas obviously you can buy a domain for much cheaper than that. So just wanted to mention they are named similarly, but they are two separate things, and it's a little bit confusing. Now, like I said at the beginning, I'm not here to say WordPress is perfect because it is not. And I will tell you the main reasons that people don't like it as part of this before I talk about why I do. So the first thing is WordPress is a content management system. Now you may ask yourself, Nicole, why am I looking at an HTML website in your example here? Well, back before content management systems, HTML websites were what was normal. Now, as you see here, we're on and they're facing this out, so I don't feel bad linking to it. So if we click on this properties for sale, we see that the domain name changes and this page looks totally different. And so what happens when you do pages in HTML is that they're all independently built, right? And so what you'll notice is the old HTML websites, they don't have a search function really because they're all independent of one another and they just happen to be linked together. And also, you'll notice that each page is built completely separately. So let's say you wanted to change your menu, your navigational menu from About to About Us. If you had 10 pages on your website, you would have to open up each of those 10 individual pages on HTML and change it on each one of those pages separately because they are separate files. Now, WordPress is what's called a CMS, which is a content management system. Now, people's main beef with WordPress is that it's built in a programming language called PHP. And because that is tiny, I will tell you that PHP was invented in 1995, which is, in web terms, ancient. So WordPress is powered by this very old programming language, which definitely has its issues, right? Now, the problem with any big thing is that WordPress has created an entire ecosystem. So WordPress.org, as I mentioned earlier, is a free download, right? And so what happens is people like me or other people are like, oh, I wish WordPress did this. And they'll create something custom. And sometimes they'll give it away. Sometimes they'll offer it for a nominal fee. And so what happens is you have all these WordPress developers, you have all these plugin and theme creators. So you have this whole multi-million-dollar ecosystem that has been built off this free software. And it's kind of hard to change that now. So just to give you an idea, the WordPress market share, okay, I do have this pulled up, is actually a little bigger than I thought, honestly. And by the way, I'll link to all these in the show notes once the broadcast is done. But so this is the market share of WordPress compared to all websites versus the content management system website market. So obviously not every website is built in a CMS. There are still HTML websites out there, as I've demonstrated, but there's also some other things that are not content management systems, which I'll just mention very briefly in a second. But as you see, WordPress, whether you compare it to all websites where it has 43% of the market share, but of the CMS, it has 65% of the market share. So it's still like the biggest kind of player in the space right now, and probably will be for a while. Now, there is this super cool, trendy thing that's coming around now in a way to build websites. I full disclosure, I don't know anything about it. I just know that it exists. It's called a headless CMS. And so what I understand about it is that with WordPress, there is an install of WordPress, like a database that kind of controls everything. This is a little bit desegregated, which means that it's lighter, it's more nimble, and it's more customizable. That is literally what I know about this. So I will link to this if you want to read more about them. But obviously there are new things coming on the market that are not like, I don't know, if you were running a very small website or a very specific website, something like WordPress might not be great for you. You might need something that was a little bit more flexible or just like didn't have as much functionality. So you could use something like that. It would load fast. It wouldn't have to be updated all the time, that kind of thing. So I'm not here today pretending that WordPress is perfect, because it is not. And I have hopefully outlined to you some problems. But if you want to learn more about WordPress, I will link to the broadcast that I did about Wordpresscom versus Wordpress.org. And I will also link to the broadcast that I did with my colleague, Matt Baya, about WordPress security, because that's the big beef with it, is that because it is a very popular CMS, it has a pretty big target on its back. So you do have to keep it up to date. I have a client right now. I'm literally running updates as I'm broadcasting right now, and their website hasn't been updated in a really long time. So it's taking forever to run. I'm also a little worried they've been hacked. I'm looking into that as well. But point being is that if you are using the most popular thing, clearly hackers are going to want to hack that thing. So it's really important that you keep it up to date. And I will mention briefly here that we do WordPress weekly WordPress backups and updates for our clients for $25 a month. If you're interested, get in touch. Okay, so back to the subject matter at hand, which is that WordPress comes with a lot of functionality. When you download it, it was built originally as a blogging software, so blogging is built in. You can make pages, you can make photo galleries. There's all kinds of stuff that's pre-built in to what's called WordPress core, or the sort of base model of WordPress. So anything you add after, it's kind of like when you buy a car and you like add a cool sunroof, or you add a 6-disc changer. Not that anybody does that anymore, but plugins are basically the add-ons, the premium features that you can sort of put on your site. And a lot of the ones I'm going to recommend today are paid, but none of them is over $100, I don't think. Yeah, I think one of them is $59. So they're all relatively inexpensive. The other thing is that if you are a client of mine, I do have developer licenses for all of these. So just ask me. And if it's not on your website, if it's on your website, it's because I put my developer license on it. And if you want it on your website, because I designed your website a long time ago, just get in touch. So there are 6 plugins on my list today. We pretty much put these on every website, and I just really like them. I find them easy to use and all of that. And the first one is called Backup Buddy. Now, there's also Updraft, and there's other backup plugins. I don't really care what plugin you use, but I think a backup plugin is important to have. First of all, WordPress is not clairvoyant and doesn't know when you're updating your website. It doesn't know you're about to sit down today and spend 4 hours on your website, right? So what I tell people to do is, listen, if you're going to do a chunk of work, run a backup, work a little bit, a couple of hours, run another backup. And the absolute, best case scenario is nothing bad happens, and then you can just trash the backups. If something bad happens, we do have the backup and we can restore it very quickly. And because it's a database, and because it's not just individual HTML files, we have to back up not only the files, but the database as well. So these plugins make it really easy. And they make it really easy also to restore, because restoring can be a little bit complicated because you have to make a database and all of that. But a lot of these plugins have a one-click restore button, which allows you to go back in time and restore your website if you need to. So I recommend, like I said, I like Backup Buddy a lot. It has a lot of functionality. And in addition to being able to run backups when you're doing updates, you can also schedule them to run in an automated way. So you can make it so your site backs up and automatically uploads into Dropbox or automatically uploads into Google Drive. The backup, I mean, not your website. But so it's handy to have some kind of, if you don't know when your website was last backed up, please do scheduled backups, because yes, your server probably takes them. I know the server, the web host I use does nightly backups, but if you don't know what your web host policy is, it's important that you know how often your website is being backed up, because if something happens, you don't want to lose all that work. The second plugin that I really like is called iThemes Security. The free version works fine. The web host I work with has a pro version. So if you're a Svaha customer like I am, you can just say, hey, can you put the pro version on my website? And what this does is this helps with hacking. If you like WordFence better, I don't have strong feelings about one versus the other. I just started using iThemes because it is put out by the same company that makes Backup Buddy. So I'm already in that ecosystem anyway. But the idea is that you can do things like limit login attempts. So let's say that someone tries to log into your website 5 times. After that, it'll block the IP address. For example, if files change really quickly, it will send you an email, say, hey, this group of files has changed. So normally when I put this on a website, I usually get an email from, if the client is the one maintaining the website, I'll get one of these notifications forwarded to me and be like, is this a big deal? Is this a big deal? And the thing is, it's just letting you know what's going on in your site. And typically, like I said, what hackers do, they try to log in a bunch of times and it doesn't work, or they change a bunch of files on your site. So it's just like a little canary in the coal mine. There is, like I said, free versions of both of these things that have a fair bit of functionality. I don't think you necessarily need the paid version unless you're more of a paranoid person, or say like you run an e-commerce website and that's how 80% of your money comes in. By all means, let's beef up the security. But point being is, if you have some kind of monitoring going on your site, it can be really good to have. A third plugin I like a lot is called Smush. There's also a pro version of Smush, but the free version is pretty good too. And what it does is it takes your image files and it makes them smaller. And I know what you're thinking. Well, I can pick what size the image displays on the page. But here's the thing. Just because the display size is small does not mean the file size is small. And as our phone cameras get better and better, the resolution gets better and better, and those files get bigger and bigger. And so with most people, when they complain to me that their website is slow, I will put it into our little testing tool, which Matt and I talked about in the broadcast about WordPress. And I'll normally see that for most people, the thing that's taking a long time to load on their website is images. So compressing them is a great way to save space. Plus, your monitor only has a certain amount of resolution anyway. Your screen size is only going to get so big. So it is fine to compress some of those images, because when you print something, you need to have it at a much higher resolution than looking at it on a screen. So smush your images. If you're using, by the way, the free version, it'll only smush, I think, 30 or 50 at a time. So if you have hundreds of images, you just have to, press smush, keep the tab open, go do something else, come back. Oh, it's done that 30, hit smush again. The paid version does double the amount of compression and will do all of your images at once, but up to you. The free version works fine. The other thing is that WordPress switched a couple of years ago to the Gutenberg editor, which I always thought was a really pompous name for this thing. Basically, what happened was, when something like Squarespace and Wix came out, clients were like, well, I like my WordPress site, but I want to be able to drag and drop stuff. And WordPress listened and they did this drag and drop editor. But what happened is it kind of lost some of the stuff in the translation, especially if you're like me and used to working in WordPress, or are just used to having sort of a bar on the top of the page that lets you format, lets you highlight text and then click on the B button to bold it, that kind of thing. So I usually put the classic editor on the website if I think that the person isn't going to really use the drag and drop functionality very often, or if they're kind of used to the editor. I find it easier to use than the Gutenberg built-in thing, but again, this is a personal choice, but I put it on every website just to to have that option. The fifth plugin that I put on just about every website is Yoast SEO. But if you're, for some reason, what I noticed is sometimes Yoast conflicts with certain themes. I've noticed that in the past. So all-in-one SEO also is fine. They're both SEO plugins. They allow you to write page titles and descriptions individually for your pages. They let you pick out keywords, that kind of thing. And the idea is that it has all these kind of little built-in things to improve the search engine optimization of your website. Is it going to fix all your SEO problems? Absolutely not. But is it going to make your site a lot easier to index by search engines? Yes. And so you just turn it on, and a lot of them, by the way, both of them, I think, have, it'll walk you through. It'll be like, okay, first do this, and then do this. And it'll take you through all the individual tabs that are part of the plugin. And so it'll let you do everything you can SEO-wise on your WordPress site. Like I said, is there other things you can do for search engines? Absolutely. You can check out past broadcasts of this. I'll try to link. I think I did at least one SEO broadcast, maybe two. I'll link to some in the show notes. And then finally, this is the plugin I said I would marry on that job interview I didn't get, and that's Gravity Forms. So forms are pretty much a part of most business owners' websites, whether it's an intake form so that you can do a follow-up call back, whether it's a payment form if you're a nonprofit that takes donations. Usually a form is a part of just about every kind of website out there. And Gravity Forms is really good because, like, it's a paid version. Well, hold on, I forgot how much it is. $59 for an individual site license. So not terrible, but it also integrates with everything. So if you have a contact form on your website and you want to just add a little checkbox that says, add me to your email list, it'll integrate with MailChimp, Constant Contact, SendGrid, Emma. I'm trying to think of all the other ones back there. Like, there's literally, I don't think hundreds is, that might be too much, but there's a lot of integrations back there. You can also do things like conditional logic. So for example, I had one client, she literally wrote a book, right? So she didn't need a shopping cart. She just needed a payment form so that she could sell the book. And she has to charge sales tax in the state of Maine, but doesn't have to charge sales tax elsewhere. So we made a conditional field where if someone puts in a Maine address, they get charged sales tax. And if they put in a non-Maine address, they don't get charged sales tax, stuff like that. So we've done some pretty complicated forms in Gravity Forms. It can handle them well. It stores a copy of the form on the website. So like, let's say the submission is getting forwarded to your admin and they accidentally delete it. It's on the website still. Obviously, any sensitive information like credit card is encrypted. So, no worries there. And I just find it's really easy to work with. And also, like all of these plugins has really great documentation. Because that's the thing, if you're going to build something, and part of the reason that you're paying for it is, yes, you're paying for the developer to build it, but also you're paying them to do some kind of documentation. So whether that's written documentation with screenshots, whether that's videos, whether it's a searchable library or a way you can submit a support ticket, you're not like alone. Like you've paid for this, so you're going to be supported in using it typically. So there are other plugins I use for more specific purposes, but those are the ones I pretty much put on every website. It's the box you first unpack when you get to the apartment, your necessary things when you move. This is like my necessary little book of plugins. And yeah, like I said, WordPress is a great option for a lot of people. I also understand if you've made a different choice. There is increasingly more and more things on the market that serve different kinds of business owners, different kinds of nonprofits, people doing certain projects that need certain things online that are not a full-on content management system. And I'm glad they exist. So yeah, I was trying to beef up a little bit with this broadcast, the website playlist on the YouTube channel in particular, because, it looked a little less than the other, I guess, topics that I cover. But if you have a topic that you want me to cover, I do hope that you either leave a comment on this broadcast, like I said, anything like marketing, tech, like sort of online business stuff, email marketing, websites. Like I said, I mainly work in WordPress, so like that's what I know about. But if you have tons of Drupal questions or something, I could probably find somebody who will come on. So if I don't know something, the good news is I have a lot of friends who do know stuff. So you can leave it the comment on this broadcast if there's a topic you want us to cover, or you can reach out via the contact form on the website if you're a little bit more shy. And I just want to also say that if you like this, I hope you subscribe or like or follow wherever you're watching this here. But if you want to go back and kind of binge watch some episodes, we do have playlists on the YouTube channel and on the Breaking Even blog. We have all of the broadcasts there, and it's organized by topic. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and see you next week. Take care.